this is one of those interviews that when you grow up, you don't think that, you know, career plus and, you know, people you get to speak to. Because I just remember, you know, being young and your songs just impacting, you know, not only my lives, but a lot of people's lives, you know, they grew up with it. But now we're back.
Yeah, certainly.
But what I find interesting is that, you know, from what I was reading up on, there was a period where you just, it almost seems like you fell out of love with music. I mean, can you explain to us what caused that?
Yeah, that thing where I felt that my love affair with music had, you know, my own music more so, it started to dim. I think it was definitely what was happening around me. The music industry had changed a lot. A lot of people had lost their jobs, and the original team that were there and I felt were crucial to, you know, my success, they'd been in the background, you know, my then A&R, a lot of people were no longer, you know, companies that kind of merged together, people lost their jobs. And by my last record, I couldn't even name my A&R man on that album. And I think by then I started to think, you know what, I've had a good run. You know, when Dreams first came out 20 years ago, I didn't imagine that I'd be here 20 years later talking about it. So the fact that it got to that time and I was like, I haven't spent enough time with my children, I'm not loving making music anymore. I love listening to music, but the whole process, it wasn't the same. So I pretty much kind of said to myself, you know what, I'm ready to hang up my mic, this is it. And at the time I really truly believed it. You hear of people saying I'm retiring it, and they don't mean it. And at that time I really believed I meant it. And you know, it wasn't until a chance meeting with the producer Science, I would say he totally reignited my passion of music again. You know, me going in the studio with him. But before that, me going into the studio and hearing his music for the first time, outside of, you know, the people he was, you know, known for making music for. He was in the studio, there was a female vocalist. And I kind of had my hate on because musically it was sounding great. I was like, oh my God, you know, I want in on this. I want to kind of, you know, work with him. I loved what he was doing. He's passionate. He's so cool. You know, Americans, they can be seen as a lot of things, but he wasn't full of himself. He was just amazing. His character, he's so warm and yet, you know, so talented. And the moment that opportunity arose that I was able to get into the studio with him, it was fantastic. He started playing backing tracks. And I was on fire. I was like, oh my God. And writing to his music was so easy. So I think that it was definitely Science who reignited my passion for music, for me making music, I should say. Definitely, I'm going to blame him. So blame him.
I mean, what's interesting what you said is that the actual impact of, you know, the actual team,
yeah,
the A&R.
That's right.
You know, when that person's removed.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult, you know. It's almost like a lost child without a parent.
Yeah, it is, definitely, because what happens when you make music and you have A&R, they're the ones who kind of build you up. They're like, yeah, you know, it's all about that. You keep doing you're doing you're doing well, and then you've got no one to bounce off. You've got no one to say, actually, you're moving in the right direction. And I remember there was this particular person who should remain nameless that I remember him saying, the album's too retro. That was a previous album of mine. And you know, lo and behold, Amy Winehouse comes out and then she's got this amazing retro voice, spectacular album. And I'm like, how dare he be allowed to be in the music industry and have some kind of, how would I say, some kind of power? Because he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. And so that's kind of off-putting. And like I say, he wasn't my old A&R, he was a new person. And, you know, I think that was the only meeting I would ever have with him, and that was enough. And so you're kind of creating on your own, and you don't have the same enthusiasm that's around you. And so sometimes it's hard. It's one thing for you to be, you know, enthusiastic about what you do, but it's a great thing to have a team behind you also believe in you. And I think when you don't have that, when you're looking around and you're feeling like you're on a lonesome kind of journey, I think that's when things can kind of take. You know, I think that they can take their toll, they can play on your mind, and in my case, I was like, you know, it's time for me to kind of bow out. I felt that it was a good place to kind of bow out. And so now, knowing that I'm in this new place, I've I'm signed to Island Records, the great Island Records, historically, when you think of, like people like Bob Marley and stuff like that, it's like, wow, I'm glad to be a part of that. And to have Darcus Beese, oh my God, he's the man. I don't think I ever really met him before, and to actually meet him and this person be a stranger who was so then kind of enthused by what I was writing, by what I was known for, and wanted to be a part of that. It was exciting. It felt like I was back. I was in the right place, and nothing happens before its time. And to have Darcus Beese on your side is an amazing position to be in. And just to be able to present him with new works that I'd written, with people like, Science, with a group, with a couple guys called DBH, that Johnny and Joe, they were amazing. I worked with them, they've worked with other people, and just to have them on board and to present these songs to Darcus and him saying, I'm loving what you're doing, that was a great thing for me.
I mean, one thing about Darcus is that, as a head of a label, he's actually a music man.
A very musical man, I tell you what, he's amazing. But I know you know that.
Yeah. So, did you still feel like nerves at all when presenting your music? Always feel nervous, when it comes to your music, because it's like nurturing, like say a baby, and then the idea that you've got to then unleash it to somebody who's not been a part of their growth, their very existence. So it was a bit of a scary thing, but I was very fortunate because Darcus, he was so interested in hearing what I'd been up to. He'd heard the Naughty Boy track. He'd also heard the new stuff, and it was about the new stuff. He wasn't saying, oh, you've worked with Naughty Boy, I'm interested in signing you. It was like, what have you done lately? And he heard my stuff, and he was very complimentary. But he said we could not proceed and mark, my return to music without paying homage to the fact that Dreams was 20 years old this year. And he felt that the right thing to do was to be able to bring out this greatest hits package, but also kind of showcase what I've been up to lately. So, hence Now and Always 20 Years of Dreams.